Angie's List is now Angie. Whether you need help with routine maintenance or you're planning your dream renovation, Angie connects you with top local pros who can get the job done right. It's easy to see reviews, compare quotes, and instantly book hundreds of projects. Plus, when you book and pay through Angie, they'll cover your project up to the full purchase price, plus limited damage protection with their happiness guarantee. Check out Angie.com, and for more on the happiness guarantee, go to Angie.com/happiness-guarantee.htm.
Thanks for watching. Don Lemon tonight with its big star. D. Lemon starts now.
How's it going, sir?
Peachy.
I still am flummoxed by the misinformation over the vaccine, people refusing to get vaccinated and also refusing to wear masks. Every day seems like it gets worse. And I don't mean that. I'm talking about the people who are dying, who are actually coming down with it, especially the children. If you saw Martin Savage's report tonight.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, heartbreaking.
People who we're seeing with significant cases and hospitalizations are getting younger. Part of the metric here is ignorance, but part of it is also arrogance, this misplaced sense of righteous indignation and resistance that they believe is a false manifestation of freedom. This is not an issue of freedom. Of course, you have the freedom to make choices about your own body. Let's put to the side the irony that so many of these people don't want to afford that freedom to women. But what we're saying is, does it mean it's the right choice? And these suggestions, I think the vaccine is safe, but you have the freedom not to take it. But I don't know that the science lines up. But I don't know why they're changing the guidance. These suggestions fuel resistance, and I think it's a mistake.
You know what we don't talk about, and maybe you've talked about it on your radio show, and maybe you've talked about it on your show before. I don't get to see every second because I'm actually trying to get it in the seat and get ready for mine. But just the effect that it has, the toll that it takes on hospitals, taking up space in hospitals, people who are coming in now, the cost, the medical bills that people are getting, much of it going unpaid, the uninsured taking a toll on the medical system. There are lots of things that we don't talk about, or people don't consider when they are vaccine resistant or vaccine hesitant, when they just don't get the vaccine. There are lots of factors, more than just it's my body and it's my freedom, I can do what I want.
Well, look, and again, I think that my body, my freedom, okay. But I think that what we're seeing here is a little bit, first of all, you're right. All right. In terms of the strain on the system, it's very real. And that's why so many leaders right now are freaking out and trying to get resources into hospitals before we go through the same cycle of being overwhelmed that they will before. But you also have vaccine gaps within medical staff. You know, people, the unvaccinated aren't just, outside the medical world. They're in the medical world.
They are.
Because a lot of them are, have political feelings as well. And that's my concern. And that's why I'm having members of the right on to be reasonable and tell your people there is no advantage in resisting as some show of defiance. If you don't want to take it because fill in the blank, your doctor, your family, your history, whatever, but as a going like this to the government or giving the bird to people in power, you don't get to control me, that's a problem. And I think it's being fed by people on the right, and that's a problem.
Yeah. Well, a problem that we're going to deal with, and that our time is going to be short, is the treatment some of these guys are getting, all of them really, after their testimony. I have this gentleman right here, this hero, who's going to join me in just seconds. There he is, Officer Harry Dunn. Yeah, to talk about his experience testifying and his experience since first interview. Since yesterday.
I want to tell you something, I don't know if the officer can hear me. He really got through to my kids. Generationally, he broke through multiple generations of my family. My mom, me and the wife, but my kids, in terms of the pain of how he was approached and how he was spoken to, and that the uniform had always been insulation from that kind of animus, but not on that day.
Not on that day.
And what that meant to listen, Dunn checks, I don't know if he can hear me, but he checks every box of tough that there is that we have, right?
You should see the picture of him standing next. He's a big dude.
And what does it take? And what does it take to talk about pain and vulnerability and sensitivity, strength? So God bless him for the message that he gave.
Yeah. You want to respond?
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate those words. Thank you. That's all I got. Appreciate you.
Don't thank me. Thank you for keeping our capital safe. Thank you for protecting people, and thank you for showing restraint.
It's my job.
Towards the people who are coming after you. You know,
That's
I had
so
a
funny.
lawmaker last night who said, hey, I think if I had a gun, I would have done pretty well against them. I don't know what the rules of engagement were. That's stupid thinking. That's why that guy doesn't wear the uniform. You showed restraint and you showed mercy towards people who weren't showing it towards you, and that's why you're the best of us.
We had a conversation earlier. I actually had dinner with him, and I was talking about restraint because he wants to respond to everyone. And I told him, take the high road. Don't even read it. Don't respond to that. He's better than that. So I'm glad you're saying the same thing to him. Thank you, Chris. I'm going to get to this interview.
One second.
Yeah.
Who picked up the check? Put Dunn back on.
Done?
Who picked up the check?
Tell him.
Not him.
There it is.
Oh!
There it is.
Tell the truth. Who picked up the check?
Of course he did. Of course he did.
Can't hear you.
Actually, the boss picked up the check.
Love you, D. Lemon.
Thank you. I love
Can't
you
hear
too. I'll see you later. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is Don Lemon Tonight. We'll have that interview in just a moment, so stick around. America seems to be backsliding on this pandemic. Cases up 65% since last week. 65%. And across the country, more and more people just plain sick of a belligerent minority who won't follow the rules, ruining all the hard-won gains for the rest of us. Why? The CDC wants everyone in schools to wear masks, even if they are fully vaccinated. Yet anti-mask protests are spreading, like this one. This is outside a school board meeting in Broward County. Take a look at your screen. I don't consent. No more masks. This is where they set masks on fire. Anger spreading to Capitol Hill, where the resident doctor ordered the House to remask to prevent the spread of COVID among members and staff. Kevin McCarthy tweeting masks are not based on science and making the ridiculous claim that government officials want to live in a perpetual pandemic. I want you to listen to the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, what she has to say about that.
Leader McCarthy says it's against the science.
That as on the House floor, Republican Lauren Boebert reportedly threw a mask back at a floor staffer when she was offered one as she walked out maskless. She then sat on the House floor, the only member refusing to wear a mask today. And that's what this is all about. It's because so many people refuse to save their own lives. Well, the rubber is about to hit the road, okay? Because President Biden is about to announce a requirement that all federal workers be vaccinated or submit to mandatory testing. We just should have to do it, but okay. Companies like Google and Facebook requiring vaccines for all office employees. One of the largest real estate developers in New York City telling employees they will be fired if they're not vaccinated by Labor Day. Yes. Some people are angry about putting masks back on, just when they were getting used to going without them. Some people are even angrier, frankly, about the spread of the Delta variant and counting on masks to protect them and their unvaccinated kids from the people who just don't seem to care. And speaking of not caring to follow the rules, there is Republican Andrew Clyde, who, according to one of the GOP colleagues, his GOP colleagues, has been evading thousands of dollars in fines for refusing to wear a mask. You may remember him from calling Capitol rioters tourists, which is weird because look how he welcomed those tourists on January 6th. Right there. He also got into a heated exchange with Jamie Raskin late last night over his insurrection denial comments, comparing the attack at the Capitol on January 6th to what he called, quote, a normal tourist visit. Now, Congressman Raskin getting him to admit that he still stands by that, even after 4 hero police officers testified under oath, calling the rioters at the Capitol terrorists. Here's how it went down.
I want to ask you this. They were asked the question by several of our colleagues, including Ms. Cheney, about statements that you made saying that the January 6th violent insurrection against Congress was akin to a normal tourist visit. And those officers said they weren't tourists, they were terrorists. Do you stand by your statement that they were tourists?
I would like you to quote my exact statement, not your interpretation of my statement.
Okay. Watching the
record.
TV footage of those who entered the Capitol and walked through statuary halls showed people in an orderly fashion staying between the stanchions and ropes, taking videos and pictures. You know, if you didn't know the TV footage was a video from January 6th, you would actually think it was a normal tourist visit. Those are your words.
And I stand by that exact statement as I said it.
Okay, do you agree or disagree with the officers who spent 4 or 5 hours battling that medieval mob that had baseball bats and lead pipes and so on? Do you stand by the statement that the people that they were fighting were tourists, or would you agree with them that they were terrorists?
That statement did not say that those people were tourists.
What? Okay, but the fact is, the statement said you would actually think it was a normal tourist day. Well, dude, what does that mean? If it's a normal tourist visit, rather, a normal tourist visit, you would actually think it was a normal tourist visit. That means you thought they looked like tourists. What kind of logic? Okay, whatever. Officer Daniel Hodges said this to the Select Committee yesterday.
Why do you call the attackers terrorists, and what do you think about our colleagues who think we should call them tourists?
Well, if that's what American tourists are like, I can see why foreign countries don't like American tourists. But I can see why someone would take issue with the title of terrorist. It's gained a lot of notoriety in our vocabulary in the past few decades. And we like to believe that, no, that couldn't happen here.
Yeah, we might like to believe it couldn't happen. Maybe we should call them tourists. Or just terrorists. Maybe we'd like to believe that it couldn't happen here. But those 4 officers who fought nearly to death, they know the truth. They know the price of freedom, real freedom, right? Not just the performative fake, but freedom, liberty, democracy. They know the real price of freedom, of democracy. And they know the price that they paid, the physical and emotional wounds, physical and emotional price they're still paying to this day. So it's really disgusting that some people are calling their bravery into question, mocking them for a perceived lack of toughness, right? People can sit, protected by the TV studio or keyboard warriors or, security guards and all that. Over on the Fox propaganda network, people like Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham, who love to tell you just how patriotic they are. Performative, fake. How they support law and order. Performative, fake. Transactional. Well, it seems that they have just forgotten all about that when it comes to those 4 police officers who risked their lives to defend our democracy from the attacks by bloodthirsty, Trump-supporting rioters, terrorists on January 6th. Insurrectionists, not tourists. Just listen to Tucker Carlson mocking Sergeant Agolino Gunnell. He's an Iraq War veteran, by the way.
Watches Gunnell compares what happened on January 6th to the Iraq War.
And we were not letting them in. They tried to convert us. They tried to persuade us to let them in. My time compared to Iraq, totally different. This is our own citizens. People who we sworn an oath to protect, but yet they are attacking us with the same flag that they claim to represent. It was bad.
Actually, what happened on January 6th, according to the video we do have, does not look a lot like Iraq. It's not Fallujah.
This from someone who has never served a day in uniform. Someone who will never know the kind of bravery it takes to put your life on the line for democracy. And how about I show you another piece of video? How about you take a look at what it was really like for the police who fought to stop the mob of rioters who stormed the Capitol, the mob that hunted lawmakers and the vice president in the halls. And I want you to listen to this guy. This guy is scoffing at Mike Fanone for being brave enough to talk about the trauma that he is still suffering nearly 7 months after that horrible day.
Watch Fanone cite the psychological trauma he endured as an excuse for ditching our Bill of Rights.
I've been left with the psychological trauma and the emotional anxiety of having survived such a horrific event.
Trauma. And as I said, I want to show you I thought we were going to this one. I want to show you another piece of video. Laura Ingraham mocking those hero officers with a disrespectful gag award show. And I do mean gag.
The award for blatant use of partisan politics when facts fail, the Engel Award goes to Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn.
I'm a law enforcement officer, and I do my best to keep politics out of my job. But in this circumstance, I responded. Well, I voted for Joe Biden. Does my vote not count? Am I nobody?
That is some twisted you know what. And that is what her audience obviously wants to see. You know what she left out of Officer Dunn's testimony? You know what happened next, right? I know you remember. Officer Harry Dunn was subjected to an onslaught of vile, racist abuse. And if you think this is tough to hear, if you're offended by this racist language, well, you should be.
One woman in a pink MAGA shirt yelled, "You hear that, guys? This nigger voted for Joe Biden." Then the crowd, perhaps around 20 people, joined in screaming, "Boo, fucking nigger." No one had ever called me a nigger while wearing the uniform of a Capitol Police officer. In the days following the attempted insurrection, other black officers shared with me their own stories of racial abuse on January 6th. One officer told me he had never, and in his entire 40 years of life, been called a nigger to his face, and that streak ended on January 6th. Yet another black officer later told me he had been confronted by insurrectionists in the Capitol who told him, "Put your gun down and we'll show you what kind of nigger you really are."
Hey, Laura Ingraham, Tucker Carlson, cowards. Officer Harry Dunn is an American hero. And I'm proud to say that he is here with me now in his first interview since that hearing. He's going to tell all next.
Angie's List is now Angie, your home for everything home. Angie still has the same top pros and reviews you've counted on for more than 20 years. Only now you'll get access to all the tools you need to make your home your happy place. Inside, outside, big or small, Angie helps you find the right solution for whatever you need done, all from your phone. It's simple to find upfront pricing and instantly book hundreds of projects. You can even search pricing guides to see what others paid for similar jobs, and easily compare quotes from top local pros to make sure you're getting a fair price. From lawn care to repairing the AC to the project of your dreams, Angie has your home projects handled from start to finish. Plus, when you book and pay through Angie, they'll cover your project up to the full purchase price, plus limited damage protection with their happiness guarantee. Make your home an Angie home. Check out Angie.com today. And for more on the happiness guarantee, go to Angie.com/happiness-guarantee.htm.
Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn speaking out about the racist attacks he endured while defending the Capitol on January 6th. And I'm honored to talk to Officer Dunn tonight about his powerful emotional testimony before the select committee. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to see you and to spend time with you in person. I wanted to spend time with you in person and stay here so that I get to interview you in person instead of by satellite. Hearing you describe what happened, 20 rioters calling you the N-word on January 6th, it was a powerful moment, and it shows that obviously there's a clear racial aspect to this insurrection, and you wanted to get that across yesterday.
I can't believe that. You know what hurts more than, or just as much as what happened on January 6th, the attacks on our credibility, and that we're lying, and that we don't love our country, and we're fake police officers, and we're not real just what the stuff that you was just playing there, the Laura Ingrams and the Tucker Carlsons, and an act? That was an act? Wow. Thanks. It's frustrating. It's more than frustrating. It makes you so angry. But unwavered, and I'm still gonna go do my job tomorrow, just like I do for the last 13 years.
You were speechless when I played that, and you said to me in the commercial break, I wish I had worn my USA shirt today. Why?
We're not Americans because we don't agree with their political views. Everybody's allowed to have a different political view. That's what makes America America. That's what makes America a democracy. What are they doing to preserve democracy? I know what I'm doing. I know what I did to preserve democracy. I protected Republicans, Democrats, and independents for the last 13 years of my life. And I'm going to do it for 13 more, God willing. This is my country, too. I'm allowed to have a political opinion. That's what makes America great. Makes America great, right? That sounds familiar.
Yeah. When they say, you've heard you've become, for right-wing media, you've really become a punching bag. People who say, well, you're not like everyone else, and you're not, basically saying that you're not a real police officer, or it's like almost you're not a real American.
I'm not a street cop. I'm not going to pretend to be. The officers in Portland, in Minnesota, and Seattle, and across the country that went through hell, my heart goes out to them. They didn't deserve any of the stuff that they went through. And a lot of people want to say, well, what about those guys? They are freaking heroes too. They deserve credit. They deserve honor. They deserve respect. Every single cop this summer that was met against Antifa and the vicious rioters this summer, they absolutely deserve the credit and respect those officers do. They don't deserve it. Just like on January 6th, it seems like it can't be this and this. It has to be this or that. Mm-hmm. It's both of them. Why can't both things exist? Both things are true.
You think they're shifting the blame? Or at least trying to shift the focus from what happened? Listen, we can deal with many things in this country at the same time. And if something happens, it doesn't mean that you go, oh, well, what about this? What about that? Can't we focus on what happened on January 6th, where our democracy was in jeopardy?
We should be.
This weren't just people who were exercising. Some of them were exercising their right to protest. Mm-hmm. Others went way too far. That's a different story than trying to undermine democracy and stop an election.
And that's kind of what bothers me a little bit. Even just the footage that they just played and that you showed from the Fox News clip. Laura Ingrams showed footage and Tucker Carlson showed footage of the individuals walking through the stanchions. But they didn't show the footage of the outside, the tens of thousands of hours of footage of the brutal combat that officers faced. I am so fortunate. I'm so fortunate that I was not physically assaulted. I didn't get my ass whooped, and I am so thankful. But you know who did? So many of my coworkers, so many of the MPD guys. Mm-hmm. There's guys that are still out of work because they got their ass whooped physically. Mm-hmm. If I came in here with my arm in a sling or a bandage around my head, would that give me a little more credibility? Sorry, I can't put a Band-Aid on my emotions, on my brain, my psychological, my mindset. I can't put a Band-Aid on it. All I got is my words.
This is the new Republican talking point when I talked to Officer Michael Fanone tonight, is that it was only 100 violent people at the Capitol, that they're still downplaying it. but we all saw and we lived. What difference does it make if it was 100 or 200 or 300 or 1,000? It was still people doing what they did, beating up police officers with Blue Lives Matter flags and American flags, bear spraying officers, pepper spraying them. It still happened. So what do you think of that new talking point? It was just a couple hundred or 100 people.
100, 1,000, like you said, it doesn't matter. It was their goal was to disrupt democracy. How many terroristic acts are carried out by one person that define the way going forward for countries, the way they operate? One person can change the whole direction of countries. 100, their goal was. Think about this.
That doesn't look like 100 people right there.
Think about this. What if they succeeded, though? That's the thing. Like, what if everybody said, well, it wasn't that bad? Okay. What if they did get to Mike Pence and Pelosi and the congressional ballot, the votes, the electoral college votes? What if they got to those? Were they just going to say, yeah, we did it. See, look, guys, this is a warning. We could have done this, but we didn't. Should it not be taken serious? At what point does it come, all right, guys, I don't know. I don't even know what to say, man. It's infuriating.
You know what I noticed about spending, and listen, I thought it was important to come to D.C. during the hearings and to meet you guys, because I had never met you in person. I met you on television, and to actually spend time with you guys. And the more I spend time with you guys, I've realized that this is 24 hours a day for you. You're constantly getting on your social media messages from people, hate. People are finding your phone numbers. People are reaching out to you in ways. People are saying things to you. It's not over for you. This is 24 hours a day. And you're not used to that sort of attention. You asked me, you said, Don, how do you handle all this criticism and these hateful messages? You're not used to that.
No.
This is 24 hours for you.
You asked me at dinner, are you hungry? Because I literally started picking up my phone and scrolling through the hate messages, the ads, the mentions that I'm a traitor, I'm a coward. I had to turn it off. Like, it sucks, man.
Go on.
It sucks. Like, but Mike says something great that once, I think he said it this morning about once they're at their end and they have nothing else left.
He said it tonight.
Was it tonight? Yeah.
He said that people were, and I believe the same thing, is that they are fighting tooth and nail because it's a dying breed. Mm-hmm. It's basically a dying breed.
And we can't give up now. We got to keep fighting for democracy, justice for everybody. Everybody. Right-wing people, left-wing people. And everybody's allowed to have their own opinion, and nobody should get criticized or called less of Americans because you have a different political belief. Like, that's not democracy, right?
Yeah. And he was talking about the racists and the bigots, saying that they are fighting tooth and nail right now because they realize that their time is up soon. And I've said the same thing, but that was very profound that he even recognized that. I want to play this for you, and then I'm going to ask you about it after we come back from break. Let's play it. We'll go to break, and then I'm going to ask Officer Harry Dunn about this moment in his testimony.
If a hitman is hired and he kills somebody, the hitman goes to jail. But not only does the hitman go to jail, but the person who hired them does. There was an attack carried out on January 6th, and a hitman sent them. I want you to get to the bottom of that.
Back now with Officer Harry Dunn, who defended the U.S. Capitol on January 6th and testified about it before the Select Committee yesterday. So, Officer Dunn, I just want to play that important moment again from your testimony yesterday and then get your response. Here it is.
If a hitman is hired and he kills somebody, the hitman goes to jail. But not only does the hitman go to jail, but the person who hired them does. There was an attack carried out on January 6th, and a hitman sent them. I want you to get to the bottom of that.
The hitman and the person who hired them. Who sent them there, you think?
I'm not one to speculate, so I like to stick to facts. There was literally a rally at the White House saying to go down to the Capitol, fight like hell. That's not my words. And that's what they did.
Are you confident that this committee is going to get to the bottom of the answers that you're looking for?
Man, call me crazy, but I kind of believe in government in the long run being successful and being able to, even if I disagree with the outcome, like if this committee investigates it and they say, you know what, everybody did, the people who attacked, we're prosecuting them, the people who may have agitated them, it's not enough to, okay, I can accept that, but I can't accept it is the brushing off of it and nothing happens. Like, look at it, and I've been painted at this left-wing activist or whatever. That's what Tucker Carlson said. If their talking point is Nancy Pelosi was responsible for Capitol Police and the failures. Okay, say that she is. Investigate it. And if she was wrong, accountability needs to be held by any and everybody. Not just the left, not just the right. Any and everybody who had anything to do with the failures of January 6th needs to be held accountable.
Do you want the committee to subpoena Trump and his allies on Capitol Hill?
That I don't know. I don't even know how that works. I don't know how to subpoena. That's their. I got nothing. I could talk about what I know and what happened to me. I just hope that they know what they're doing. That's why they're on the committee. So.
You know, we were talking about whether, folks were armed or not, right? And, it's been this whole thing about, well, people weren't armed with firearms, right? But they were armed, as you guys said, with other weapons besides firearms. There's this Virginia police officer who was fired after storming the Capitol, and he was jailed today because he ordered a large stockpile of guns and ammunition after his January arrest and posted support for future political violence. And you spoke yesterday about all the people who still believe the lies that led to January 6th. How much danger do you think that we are still in now?
I said this, and I continue to stand by it, that as long as people are emboldened by people in power, then there's still a threat for things to happen. That's why we need to make sure we're prepared and we continue to shoot down all rhetoric that could possibly lead to violence. Like I said, it's okay to have different opinions, but don't fight like hell or march down to the Capitol. First Amendment protests is what this country is about. First Amendment, the Constitution, like that's the democracy of it. But once you start attacking people, attacking things, then that's wrong. And you know what? That goes to the riots this summer. They were wrong. If you peacefully protest, then sure. But the riots and the violence and the damage this summer, they were wrong. They were wrong. And that's the exact same thing that happened at the Capitol. But their goal was to overthrow democracy, which is a bigger threat to America.
Yeah. The Department of Homeland Security is warning about the possibility of more violence in the next few weeks because, as you know, there's this right-wing conspiracy theory out there that's saying, oh, Trump's going to be reinstated in August. Do you think that we are prepared after January 6th of this year?
I'm no security analyst. I'm not going to even pretend to be.
But you work there.
Correct. And I can speak to this. The officers that I work with, the Capitol Police officers, specifically the first responders unit, those guys will be ready to come to face whatever is thrown at them. That's a brave, heroic bunch of guys. And I am so proud to work with those guys. And we will be out there ready to serve and protect democracy and fulfill our oath that we took. So.
Yeah. I want to play something for you because we talked a bit about that at dinner, but Officer Michael Fanone last night talked to me, who also testified yesterday, that he says that he felt that he wasn't being protected or supported by the Fraternal Order of Police. My colleague Jake Tapper spoke with the national president, Patrick Yos, earlier today. Take a listen to this.
MAGA media, MAGA politicians are smearing police officers who are members of your union. They're smearing Harry Dunn, the Capitol Police officer. Do you feel that you cannot be as supportive of the Capitol Police officers, of the Metropolitan Police Department officers, as you would want to be because Trump supporters make up most of your union.
I don't recognize or accept that characterization. I can tell you, and I can provide documentation if you'd like, of just how involved that the labor committees and the national has been involved. I don't think there's been a week that has gone by since January 6th that we have not been engaged in meaningful discussion and actions on behalf of that incident on that day. So to suggest that somehow we're ignoring it is not true.
There was, Jake went on to ask him, I wish we had played that part. Jake went on to say, but you're not doing it publicly. You issue statements all the time, which Michael Fanone said, on behalf of police officers who are, who may be getting unfair treatment in the media. But you haven't really done that when it comes to these police officers. And you guys have been vilified in the media. Do you think you're getting the support that you need?
No. And I don't say that to be an ass or nothing, but like you said, people make statements all the time about we support. I mean, let's be frank. In 2016 and 2020, the FOP put their support behind a presidential candidate. So they interjected themselves in politics. So when we don't want to mix police are political pawns now, well, yeah, we injected ourselves. We, and I say we because I'm a member of the FOP. I'm a dues-paying member of the FOP. So I say we. We injected ourselves into politics. And you can't have it one way or the other. Just keep it consistent. If something is wrong, come out and support people that you're supposed to support.
You're supporting the wrong people?
They're not supporting anybody. Mm-hmm. Silence. What's the phrase? Silent. Your silence speaks volumes. Mm-hmm. Something. By them not saying anything, we're forced to make our own assumptions.
And that assumption is?
We're not being supported.
Anything else you want to say? You gonna be all right?
I did 3-4 hours of testimony yesterday. I said all I had to say.
You're a good dude.
Thanks, man.
It's really an honor to meet you and to spend time with you. Thank you so much. Thank you for what you've done for the country. Thank you for the person you are. Thank you for serving. Thank you for thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Officer Dunn and his fellow officers all demanding an investigation into what happened on January 6th and who is behind it. Well, this investigation say about the state of this democracy. We'll talk about that. So there is an infrastructure deal in the Senate. You heard that right. The vote 67-32 to move forward with debate on President Biden's $1 trillion infrastructure bill. 17 Republicans voting with all 50 Democrats. Is it a sign of things to come in Washington? A lot to discuss now. Matthew Dowd is here, the former chief strategist for President George W. Bush. Thank you, sir. Good to see you. Before we talk about the infrastructure and all that, I have to get your reaction to Officer Dunn. Made it crystal clear in his testimony that what happened to him and other officers of color on January 6th was a racist attack. The abuse that he is receiving after sharing his story, racist. The big lie is racist. All the restrictive voting laws targeting cities with large minority populations, racist. Where does this end, Matthew?
Well, I don't think it ends. First, you have a great interview with Officer Dunn, and for him standing up and speaking truth to power is phenomenal, just as what we need in this country. I don't think it ends until we till the soil and get the poison out of the soil of America, because this has been something, as great as America has been, and it's a wonderful experiment in democracy as it's been with our U.S. Constitution, in our soil of our country has been racism. And until we remove that, scrape the soil and remove that poison from our soil, we're going to be dealing with this. We fought a civil war over this, where more than 1 million people died. We've had passed amendments on this. We've passed civil rights on this. We've given women the right to vote. And every step of the way, as the country has become more diverse, and it doesn't only have to do with race, Don, it has to do with a country that is becoming more diverse in every way, from sex to sexuality to race to belief in different religions. As it becomes more diverse, there's a backlash, and we're seeing it again.
Yeah. Is this what you said? Because I saw something that you said recently, that there's always been a significant portion of America that has resisted full democracy and freedom and equality. Can you elaborate to my audience on that? Is that what you were saying before, or does this go beyond what you were just saying?
Sure. I think we have to look at our history, and that's what I'm talking about, the history and the soil of our history. Keep in mind that during the Revolutionary War, a third of the country wanted to support the monarchy against the revolution. During the Civil War, a third of the country wanted to keep slavery as it was and fought a civil war and tried to break up the Union. During the push for women to get the right to vote, a third of the country was opposed to it. During civil rights, a third of the country was opposed to civil rights. During, as we've expressed and try to give equality for our gay and lesbian brothers and sisters, a third of the country was vehemently opposed from any expansion of rights for those folks. So we've had in their history a third of the country that's pushed back against what is not them, which is usually white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, heterosexual. And that is something that is we're again facing now. Until we remove that and sort of establish once and for all that all men and women are created equal, we're going to be fighting this battle over and over and over again.
Matthew, Politico has a report detailing how, quote, America is not racist. It's becoming the mantra for GOP politics going into 2024. What do you think of the GOP capitalizing on this slogan, and what do you think it's going to help them win?
Well, I'm a person that believes countries aren't racist, but people are racist. And there's parts of groups of people in a country that are racist. There's no way they can deny that's existed in our country. And there's been systemic problems of racism in our country. This is just another one of these things to feed the sort of their base, just raw meat to their base in the midst of this. I don't think it's going to work in this. Most Americans are open-minded, want to accept, want the broad values and rights of America to apply to everybody. But it does help feed the base of the Republican Party in this time. And I think easily counter this is, it's funny, they don't want to deal with the fact that whatever the number of people in this country that are racist, pick a number, 20%, 25%, 30%. But they want to deal with less than 1% of the country that commits violent crime. So they don't want to deal with 30% of the country that are racist and are trying to keep the institutions selected for only certain people to do it. But they constantly talk about the 1% of the country that are involved in violent crime. So I don't think it works politically, but it helps them with their base.
Also something that may be helping them with their base, may not, we shall see. But I want to talk about what's going on with COVID in this country, the variant and the rising numbers of people who are getting sick and entering hospitals, including younger people. We come right back, Matthew. We're back now with Matthew Dowd. And as promised, Matthew, I want to talk to you about the COVID frustration really boiling over right now. Almost everybody's upset about the guidance that we're getting on masks. You're going to have to mask up again for different reasons. The people who never wanted masks are losing it, some even burning them. And the vaccinated folks who wanted to get back to normal are angry that it didn't help. So what's going on here? We're divided on everything, even mask wearing.
Well, I think all of these things are related. What's happening on voting rights, what's happening on democracy, what happened on January 6th, and what's happening in our public health. And it has to do with this, Don. Democracy is basically supported by two pillars. The common good, the ability to get to common good, and a common set of facts. And we're in the midst of this pandemic, and we can't get people to agree on a common set of facts, mainly the Republicans to agree to a common set of facts and what our statistics show and what does medical science say, and the inability to go to the common good. They believe that individual liberty is more important than the common good. I would tell them to read the first few words of the Constitution, which says, we the people in order to form a more perfect union and then provide for the general welfare. They put emphasis on the I, and we need to put emphasis on the we when we're talking about public health. But until we come together and establish something that is related to the common good and we agree on a common set of facts, we're going to constantly be having this battle.
Listen, there's always a first, right, where you see things start to bubble up. There are companies that are saying, get vaccinated or don't come back. What do you think of that?
Well, I think companies have a perfect right to say that. I mean, that not only do they want to protect the community that they're in and they have an obligation to customers, but they have a definite obligation to their employer, their employees. And so I think all companies should consider that and go towards that. Again, we're not going to beat this pandemic until we all agree that the common good of public health requires us to do certain things. And whether that means get vaccinated, And if you don't want to get vaccinated, wear a mask and follow certain protocols. But until we get people off the I and more on the we, we're going to be in the midst of this fight all the time.
Matthew Dowd, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Don.
The Senate voting tonight to advance President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure bill. 17 Republicans supporting the $1 trillion plan. Plus, the pandemic of the unvaccinated is surging, with COVID cases and hospitalizations rising in hotspots all around the country. Corporate America is responding with multiple companies, as I just said, they're mandating that employees get their shots. One of the largest real estate developers in New York City telling employees that they'll be fired if they're not vaccinated by Labor Day. Joining me now, Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. Good to see you, Senator.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much. Let's talk about the advancing of the infrastructure bill. You voted to advance it, the bill tonight. The final is 67 to 32. It's not easy to get 67 votes or anything these days. We're going to put it up on the screen about what this bill will do, but you don't think this bill goes far enough. Why is that, Senator?
So look, this is only a sliver of the infrastructure that we need. It's a part that some folks wanted to make sure was bipartisan. That's fine. Long negotiations over that. But we still need a lot more. We need child care. You know, people want to go to work. You need roads and bridges. Parents also need child care. We need home and community-based care. We need to make sure that we're fighting back against the climate crisis. It is bearing down upon us. We want to do an infrastructure package. It's got to have that in it. It's time to expand Medicare. All these pieces are going to be wrapped together, and they're really one big package.
We are distanced.
Yes.
You walked in with this. I've been wearing my mask as well. I want to talk to you about COVID. Are you frustrated that it appears that Americans are sliding backwards despite having life-saving vaccine available?
Of course I'm frustrated. You know, we line up. Look, what we would have done a year ago to say that there was a vaccine that could protect people, that had nearly 100% effectiveness to keep people from being hospitalized or from dying. Goodness. And we work hard, we get this vaccine developed, we get it out there, and for a while people are clamoring for it. And now we're caught in this period where there are people who are not just vaccine hesitant, but all the way to vaccine resistant. And this isn't about politics. This is about our health. This is about keeping our children safe. This is about keeping people who have immune compromised safe, people who are undergoing cancer.
Taking up room in hospitals around the country.
You know, it's not a time to get sick.
Medical bills, expensive medical bills
Exactly right. All of that when it is preventable. I think the line that hit me the hardest was from a doc last week who said that virtually every hospitalization from COVID now and virtually every death is a preventable hospitalization, a preventable death. That means we need to do better, and we need to do better for all of us.
What did you think of the gripping testimony from the officers yesterday?
It was a very sober reminder of how close we came to losing our democracy.
What about the shifting of the blame and some Republicans saying, I didn't have time to watch it. I didn't even have time to attend. Didn't have time to watch it. I was busy meetings.
Look, this is just one more version of what the Republicans spent 4 years perfecting. Every time Donald Trump said something outrageous, every time he did something that was just amazingly racist or ignorant, the answer was, I didn't hear that, didn't see that, right? All the lines have been perfected. And now they are used in order to turn away from evidence of an armed insurrection that resulted in death, that put other lives at risk, and that put our entire democracy at risk. These people have no shame.
Speaking of our democracy, you have called for the end of the filibuster. This is what the president told me.
If it's a relic of Jim Crow, it's been used to fight against civil rights legislation historically. Why protect it?
There's no reason to protect it other than you're going to throw the entire Congress into chaos and nothing will get done.
All right.
Nothing at all will get done. Yeah. And there's a lot at stake. The most important one is the right to vote.
So how do you convince the president and other moderate Democrats in your conference who aren't willing to kill or carve out the filibuster in order to protect voting rights?
Look, voting is the beating heart of our democracy. We lose access to the ballot box. We lose everything that democracy is built on. We cannot privilege a rule of the Senate that our founding fathers specifically rejected. Do remember that the founders debated the question of when to require a supermajority. And they finally decided, well, if you're going to impeach a president, you probably ought to have supermajority. If you're going to pass treaty that overrules domestic law, you ought to have a supermajority. But they decided you get a simple majority in the House, you get a simple majority in the Senate, you get a president who's willing to sign off. That's good enough to make something law. Right now, the filibuster has given Mitch McConnell a veto over virtually everything we want to do. That cannot be put ahead of the urgency of protecting access to the vote, of getting rid of gerrymandering, and of beating back the influence of dark money. We have our toes on the line. We've got a bill that we've just about got every Democrat signed off on. What we got to do is finish up that bill and then say, as a party, but also say as patriots, this is how we protect our democracy. We have got to set the filibuster aside and go forward on voting rights.
Oh, there's something else. You, along with Senator Chuck Schumer, represented by Ayanna Pressley, you're calling on the president to cancel student loan debt.
You bet.
Listen to this, though, from the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
People think that the President of the United States has the power for debt forgiveness. He does not. He can postpone, he can delay, but he does not have that power. That has to be an act of Congress. Suppose your family was not, your child just decided they want to, at this time, not want to go to college, but you're paying taxes to forgive somebody else's obligations. You may not be happy about that.
What do you say to that?
Well, look, the president does have the power to cancel student loan debt. And you know how I know that? Because President Obama did it, President Trump did it, and President Biden has already done it. President Obama did it for several million people. President Trump did it when he said for all 43 million people with outstanding student loan debt, I forgive your interest and you can suspend payments. That's cancel your interest, not delay it, cancel it. And President Biden has done both of those things. So presidents have the power. They have used the power. I just want to see them use that power to cancel $50,000 in student loan debt. And I'll tell you why. It's because of the people who need that debt canceled. 40% of the folks who are carrying student loan debt don't have a college diploma. They tried, but life caught up with them. They had babies or someone in the family got sick. They were working 3 jobs. And now they're earning what a high school grad earns, but they are paying on college loans. It is an economic justice issue. It is also a racial justice issue. African Americans borrow more money to go to school, more money while they're in school, and have a harder time paying it off when they get out of school. Canceling $50,000 of student loan debt would help close the black-white wealth gap for people with student loan debt by 25 points. And for Latinos, by 27 points. This is the single act that the president could take to help close that wealth gap, to help close that economic inequality act, and to help our economy, to get people back into starting their own businesses, buying homes, being productive members and part of our economy.
Senator Elizabeth Warren, it's good to see you in person. Thank you so much.
It's good to see you.
Let's hope this continues.
You bet, and let's cancel that student loan debt.
Thank you very much. And after weeks of wrangling, President Biden got the Republican support he wanted for his infrastructure plan, but some members of his own party have concerns. Let's discuss now. CNN White House correspondent Mr. John Harwood is here. John, good to see you.
Welcome to D.C.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. So it looks like Congress is inching closer and closer to an actual infrastructure deal. There's still a lot that needs to be done, but do you think that the president's bipartisan approach is working, at least with this?
Looks like it is. I think it is a single issue kind of working. There's a reason that he picked infrastructure as his top priority for a bipartisan push. Roads, bridges, the energy grid, broadband, all those things are popular. They're difficult for a political party to roadblock opposition to, the Republican Party. And some members of the opposition party want credit for some of those things. So you got 17 Republicans to vote tonight. That's a positive step forward. Long way to go, but it was a major advance for the president.
Well, I'm glad you said that. 17 Republicans, long way to go. I mean, even the minority leader, Mitch McConnell, signed on to that. But it seems precarious, right? Because there's so many things that could go wrong.
A lot of things that could go wrong, including it could pass the Senate. The House could want to change it. You could have Republicans rejecting any changes coming from the House and seeing those as a ticket to pushing through the much costlier bill, the $3.5 trillion bill that Democrats want to pass with their votes alone. But there's also a lot that could go right. This was a linchpin for getting unity in the Democratic caucus, because there's some Democrats, Kyrsten Sinema, Joe Manchin, who said, we need, before we go with a Democrats-only plan, we need to see progress with Republicans. If it works the way Biden envisions, he's not only going to get this plan, he's going to get a very large bill, the second part, the families plan, that will make life-changing investments for millions and millions of people. Child tax credits.
This is a $3.5 trillion.
The $3.5 trillion package may not pass in total, may get trimmed down. Kyrsten Sinema made noise in that direction today. But if they can hold those 50 Democrats together on that bill, they're going to make a difference for a lot of poor and working class people. Health care subsidies, rental assistance, educational advances, preschool, free community college, child tax credits, a lot of things that Democrats have wanted for many, many years and been frustrated on.
It's good to see you in person.
Hey, good to be here.
Thank you, John Harwood. I know it's been over since COVID, over satellite, so it's really good to see you.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. COVID cases are up in hotspots all around the country, and the people who won't follow the rules are ruining it for the rest of us. Will COVID be with us indefinitely is the question.
The pandemic we have now is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. So please, 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 if you're not vaccinated, protect yourself and the children out there.
Today, the nation's top health officials saying it again and again, the Delta variant is running rampant because of the unvaccinated.
People not getting vaccinated not only is a bad thing for them, it could actually interfere in a negative way with the rest of the country by generating variants that would elude the vaccines.
This is a situation that is created by more and more transmission of the Delta virus among people who are unvaccinated.
And the CDC says in just days we'll have new data that shows why concerns about breakthrough cases among the vaccinated are growing. Let's discuss now with John Barry. He is the author of The Great Influenza, and we're so happy to have him on. Thank you, John, for appearing. So the U.S. is averaging more than 61,000 new cases a day compared to 11,000 just a month ago. Delta is more than 3 times more transmissible. And you write in a new opinion piece for the Washington Post about how previous pandemics have seen much deadlier variants in the years after the first waves. How worried are you about a variant evolving that can completely bypass existing vaccines?
Well, I am worried. I think, Greg, all the 5 pandemics going back to 1889 that we know anything about in detail, the virus enters the human population. It's a new virus, and it adapts to humans. Initially, it becomes better at transmissibility, which has happened. And in past pandemics, the viruses have tended to become more dangerous as well, which the data is not crystal clear yet about these variants, but they look like they're at least somewhat more dangerous. But we're not done yet. I mean, there's almost certainly going to be more variants. And what their nature is, whether they get worse or whether Delta is the worst case, we don't know. I do think that we've already seen tendencies of the various variants to at least marginally escape the ability of the vaccines, and for natural immunity, they demonstrated at least some ability to escape. I think over a period of time, it's very reasonable to expect them to improve on that ability to escape. That does not mean that we cannot keep pace with them with adjusting vaccines.
So how would we deal then with that nightmare scenario? I mean, there's plenty of resistance to basic masking around the country, let alone going to lockdown. So how do we deal with that?
Well, I think reality hits you in the face sometimes. I think, the vaccine uptake, it has increased as people recognize the reality that, 97%, whatever the precise number is in any particular area, of the people in hospitals and who are dying are not vaccinated. I think, that is starting to take hold. That's number one. So I think people will probably, the vaccine resistance, I think will make some inroads there. The other thing is the scientific community, I think, will be able to keep pace. The influenza vaccine, even when it drops below 50% effectiveness in preventing illness, is still well over 80% effective in preventing somebody getting admitted to an intensive care unit. So it's still pretty good. We've got, right now, the COVID vaccines are much higher than that. So they have a long way to go, and we can adjust the vaccines in the future.
Yeah. So there is increasing discussion, John, over when COVID might transition from a pandemic to an epidemic disease, one that may be less common, an endemic, disease, one that may be less common but remains circulating indefinitely. So tell me more about the difference and what that would mean for us.
Well, as people's immune systems and as vaccines are able to respond better to the virus, you adjust. I mean, that's the 1889 pandemic, which was long thought to have been influenza. There's speculation now that was actually a coronavirus. And that virus that they think now may have caused the 1889 pandemic, which was fairly nasty, that now causes a common cold. The virus adjusts, becomes at home in the human body, and our immune systems adjust, and we end up with an endemic disease that can cause serious illness and death, but it wouldn't be like what we're facing now.
John Barry, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
New York Democratic mayoral nominee Eric Adams hearing from leaders of his own party asking how to approach policing. I'm going to ask him what advice he's giving them. That's next. This week, 4 officers giving hours of powerful emotional testimony about the violence they endured during the January 6th insurrection. I spoke with Officer Harry Dunn tonight about how he's holding up and what he's facing now.
I'm so fortunate that I was not physically assaulted. I didn't get my ass whooped, and I am so thankful. But you know who did? So many of my coworkers, so many of the MPD guys. If I came in here with my arm in a sling or a bandage around my head, would that give me a little more credibility? Sorry, I can't put a Band-Aid on my emotions, on my brain, my psychological, my mindset. I can't put a Band-Aid on it. All I got is my words.
Joining me now to discuss is Brooklyn Borough President and the Democratic nominee for mayor of New York City, Eric Adams. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Borough President. I appreciate it. So you're a former police captain. What was your reaction to hearing the officer's testimony yesterday and what Officer Dunn said tonight?
No, and it's very powerful. And there are so many different aspects of what happened there. And you have to ask yourself, Don, where are all the pro-police individuals on the conservative arm of politics in this city? Where are they? How come they're not outraged at what happened to these officers? And I met some of the officers when I was in Washington today and talked to them and heard about how frightening it was. They didn't discharge their weapons. They were really in a dangerous situation. And many of them, the officers of color, they had racial slurs hurled at them. And it was just really despicable. And we need all those who state they're pro-police they should be speaking up right now at what happened to those officers.
You have made public safety, quite honestly, the cornerstone of your campaign, if not your career, and because you're a former police officer. And now leaders of the Democratic Party, including the president and Speaker of the House, have reached out to you for how to approach policing issues. What are you advising them?
Well, it is a unique moment, and it's, sometimes the intersectionality of our lives bring us together. Not only was I a victim of police abuse and then went into the police department to fight for reform, so we don't have to surrender the justice we deserve for the public safety we need. And what we are learning based on these conversations is that it's the foundation of our country. I say over and over, Don, that the prerequisite to prosperity is public safety, our economic recovery, how we're going to handle the future of our children. And I am really pleased at what the Democratic Party is doing and what the president is doing. He's finally saying, America, we must take a holistic approach to stopping the feeders of crime and deal with some of the imminent threats that we have now. We have to go after those illegal flow of guns in our city, and you do it by having a federal, state, and city tri-state relationship of information sharing and zero in on those illegal gun dealers.
The New York Post, I have to ask you about these comments. The New York Post reported comments that you made at a fundraiser where you said that you're running against a movement, okay, and that's a quote, against democratic socialists of America. Are you trying to steer your party in a certain direction away from Democrats like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez?
Well, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not running for mayor, and the polls made it appear as though my comments were towards her. No, I'm still campaigning. I have to win an election in November. My comments are for those candidates that are in the race. We have different beliefs on what America needs to turn around. I don't support disbanding police departments. It's part of our public safety ecosystem. I don't support many of their concepts. And so I'm talking about the concept of the socialists that are trying to take us away from our way of life, and it's not the individual. Now, we all want the same thing. I'm proud of the life of many of those individuals that want better schools, better health care, affordable housing, rebuild our economy, and inequalities. We just have different ways of doing that, and it's my job as the mayoral candidate to point out how different I am from those who are running against me.
It's a pleasure to have you on, Eric Adams, and again, I hope that you come back so that we can continue these discussions. Thank you so much, okay?
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Simone Biles speaking out tonight, tweeting, "The outpouring love and support I've received has made me realize I'm more than my accomplishments and gymnastics, which I never truly believed before." Gold medalist Dominique Dawes gives us her take. U.S. gymnastics superstar Simone Biles withdrawing from another event at the Olympics. Biles will no longer compete in tomorrow's individual all-around gymnastics competition at the Tokyo Games. She stepped away from the team competition yesterday, citing mental health concerns as she attempts to protect her body and mind. She may still compete in next week's individual event finals. Here to discuss, Dominique Dawes. She won Olympic gold in gymnastics as part of the Magnificent Seven at the 1996 Summer Olympics. I remember that well. Good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Dominique, listen, no doubt that you can relate to the intense pressure that Simone Biles was facing or is facing. She was billed as a GOAT this year. Give me your reaction to her withdrawing from the Olympic Games.
It's unreal the amount of pressure I'm sure that this young lady was facing leading up to the 96 Olympic Games. I had an emotional breakdown. I was crying before marching out in the Georgia Dome to start the competition. I then knelt down. I prayed with my teammate Amanda Borden, who was amazing, and I got back up and felt a little sense of relief, but the pressure was still there. There were nearly 50,000 people in the Georgia Dome and billions of people watching. Just think, for Simone Biles' Olympics, the whole world is watching. There's not an audience there to help with the adrenaline rush. There's no family. There's no friends in the stand. So it's a lot for this young 24-year-old to take on. And let's not forget how outspoken she has been about the culture of the sport of gymnastics and how much it needs to change. She's made it very clear that she's the only survivor of the Larry Nassar scandal on the floor. And that's a lot of weight for a young woman to take on.
Well, and it's even, it's even beyond that. I mean, it's beyond that because what she has to do, if she messes up, it can cause really serious injury. It's easy for people to understand a physical injury, but she has a mental block happening. It's called the twisties, right? Have you experienced that? Can you tell us what that is like and what she's been going through with that?
I experienced the twisties. I never knew it had a name until now, but in the 90s, we called it bulking. You would go for a particular move. Usually it's a pirouette or a twist, and you would lose a little bit of spatial awareness, get lost in the air, and then you obviously are going to land because gravity is going to pull you down. It is very scary, and I went through it quite a bit throughout my career. And many times leading up to a competition, even in the warm-up or touch, you can lose that sense of awareness. It sounds like that's what happened at the team finals. She did a 1.5 vault instead of a 2.5 vault, lost her awareness, and it really probably freaked her out. And she decided to listen to her inner voice, which I'm so thrilled she can hear her inner voice. And she did what was best for Simone, and that was to back out of the competition and protect herself mentally as well as from any physical injuries.
Listen, I mentioned that you were a part of the Magnificent Seven in 1996 in the Olympics. Carrie Strug was on your team, and I just want people to look at these pictures. I mean, Carrie won gold after breaking her ankle while attempting to vault. She got back up, taped her ankle up, and won a second attempt before collapsing in pain. Now, some people are comparing her and Biles right now, but these are two very different situations. Am I wrong?
I don't think they're as different as you were thinking they are. Earlier, I had brought up the correlation between the two, and that was viewed, that iconic moment 25 years ago when we won a gold medal at the 1996 Olympic Games, and Carrie was so courageous to go for a second vault. She was risking for her physical health and even her emotional health, to tell you the truth. Anyone in her shoes would have been scared, would have been anxious, and it affects someone for the rest of their lives. So Simone was thinking about her mental health and her physical health, and she made the decision that she didn't feel right. She didn't want to take the risk. And so she made the best decision for Simone. Back in the 90s, we couldn't hear our inner voice. The sport was very much filled with a great deal of control, fear, intimidation, and silence. And so Carrie did what she felt like she had to do and had only one choice to do. Simone, it was a different situation. She really thought, this is too much of a risk to take. I don't want to harm myself mentally, and I also don't want to harm myself physically. And she also said she didn't want to jeopardize Team USA's chances of getting on the podium because she thought she would make multiple mistakes. So I find that she's so courageous, and it's a very humbling move that she did make.
Yeah, and she's getting a lot of criticism. Look, she's 24, she's a black woman, she's got the world on her shoulders. She's not the only one right now facing this. Naomi Osaka, I'm talking about, she's being heavily criticized after losing in the third round after being expected to take home gold. She's talked about her battle with anxiety and depression, and you know what the spotlight is like. You were the first African-American gymnast to win an Olympic gold medal. Can you give us some insight into that?
Well, think about the criticism and who the individuals are that are criticizing these great, amazing athletes, the GOAT in the sport of gymnastics, or Naomi Osaka, who has done amazing things on the court, or even Michael Phelps, who's spoken out about mental health issues. These individuals that are criticizing them more than likely can't do a tenth of what these young women and this young man has done with their lives. So I really hope that these athletes, if there is that criticism out there, I'm not privy to it, that they let it go in one ear and out the other. It's not worth their time. You really don't want to judge someone until you've walked a day in their shoes, and no one's walked a day in their shoes other than Simone's.
Dominique Dawes, it's so good to see you. You look great. You haven't aged, and you still had that million-watt smile that we remember from the 1996 Olympics. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate it.
So the right is attacking Simone Biles, one conservative activist who's probably never tried flipping in the air multiple times, calls her a, quote, selfish sociopath. And the same crowd is going after the police officers who testified yesterday on Capitol Hill. So much for patriotism and backing the blue. We're going to talk about that next. Right-wing pundits are attacking Simone Biles for withdrawing from gymnastic competitions at the Tokyo Olympics to focus on her mental well-being. Listen to this. This is a disgusting comment from conservative activist Charlie Kirk.
We are raising a generation of weak people like Simone Biles. If she got all these mental health problems, don't show up. She's an incredible athlete. Of course she's an incredible athlete. I'm not saying, I just said she's probably the greatest gymnast of all time. She's also very selfish, she's immature, and she is a shame to the country. She's totally a sociopath. Of course she's a sociopath.
Who's Charlie Kirk anyway? Well, let's see whoever Charlie Kirk is tried to twist and twirl 8 feet up in the air like Simone Biles. This seems to be the theme on the right, labeling people who accomplish things that they never could as weak. So here's how Fox Propaganda Network hosts who never served in law enforcement or the military went after officers who testified yesterday about their experiences defending our Capitol on January 6th. Watch this.
The award for blatant use of partisan politics when facts fail, the Angle Award goes to Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn. For best performance in an action role, the winner is Michael Fanone.
Watch Fanone cite the psychological trauma he endured as an excuse for ditching our Bill of Rights.
I've been left with the psychological trauma and the emotional anxiety of having survived such a horrific event.
Joining me now, national correspondent for the Washington Post, Philip Bump, and CNN political analyst Natasha Alford. Hello to both of you. Good to see you. Natasha, the audacity, really. That's all I need to say. The audacity of these people sitting on their butts, bashing Olympic athletes and hero police officers while they constantly spout off about patriotism and backing the blue. What's happening here?
I know, Don. I said the same thing. The thought that went through my mind was they could never, right? It's so easy for them to, sit behind their Twitter feeds or sit on their laptop and to talk about champions. But I'm really interested in this attack, this obsession that right-wing media has with Black athletes in particular. Black public figures who speak up for themselves or who defy the status quo. I'm thinking of Meghan Markle with her mental health concerns. I'm thinking of LeBron James when he talked about social justice issues. And I think that this actually goes back even further. Think of Tommy Smith and John Carlos, with the Black Power fist at the Olympics. And so it's something about Black individuals in particular. I think when they speak up for themselves, that the right-wing pundits, they hate it. There's an audacity that they feel that these Black figures have, that they shouldn't be so confident. You notice that they try to take down their talents, and it speaks to their insecurity, and it also speaks to their fear of what these figures, the power that they have to actually shift the culture.
Yeah, well, it plays well among the party of the insurrectionists, right? So I think there's your answer right there. It's what the audience and their party wants. So, Philip, you have a new piece that's titled, To Many on the Right, Perceived Toughness Outweighs Patriotism. And you write in part, you said, the through line to all of this is the idea that American heroes are necessarily stoic and suffering, demonstrating the sort of rigid masculinity that the insecure demand of their children. Olympians and other athletes are supposed to shut up and let us enjoy their accomplishments and fame. Members of law enforcement and military are supposed to keep the bad guys in line and be tough while doing it. The only emotions they're allowed to show are anger or triumph. Why is this perceived toughness so appealing to the right? Is it because it's just performative?
Well, I mean, it certainly is the case that a lot of it is performative. But I mean, I think it's important to remember that an undercurrent of the entire Trump era has been this performative toughness, has been this sort of machismo that Donald Trump at least portrayed verbally. He'd always talk about beating up protesters and, taking a hard line with immigrants and so on and so forth. This was very much a part of Trumpism, this idea that people were very tough and that all these tough guys were tough and they were hanging out with Donald Trump, who was so tough. Like this is what it was about. And so we see absolutely it's the case that if Simone Biles were a white man who's playing in the NFL, the reaction would have been different. And absolutely, it's the case that the police officers who are white are treated differently than the police officers who are not. But it is nonetheless also the case that because these individuals are demonstrating something other than this sort of rote John Wayne-esque sort of toughness, they are then therefore necessarily cast as part of the opposition by this right wing that sees toughness as the paramount virtue that people can demonstrate.
Yeah, and they realize that I think probably the most important thing you said was John Wayne-esque toughness. John Wayne was an actor.
Right.
Wasn't a real cowboy. Didn't live on a ranch. Well, maybe he had a ranch, but it was not, he was an actor. Natasha, listen, of course there's no recognition that when you're twisting and turning 8 feet in the air like Simone Biles, one wrong move and you could be crippled. Is this about targeting her because she's a prominent black athlete? Because, I mean, that seems like it's straight out of as I said, it plays well in the insurrectionist party and in their playbook.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they would love the idea of Simone Biles not being as black and excellent as she is, but they can't take away her excellence. And so they seize this moment in which she's actually being a leader, where she's setting an example for the culture of what it means to take care of yourself. They're trying to seize this moment and turn it into weakness. But I have to tell you, Don, for black women in particular, so many of us, not only do we have her back, but we felt seen in this moment. Whether we're talking about politics or sports, we're often praised for sucking it up and, putting democracy on our back and being leaders. And so many black women are saying that we have to take care of ourselves too, even if that means stepping back. And it was Zora Neale Hurston, the great writer, who said, if you are silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it. And Simone Biles refused to be silent. She spoke up about her pain and she freed a lot of people in the process.
Yeah, listen, Philip, people like the people I mentioned, Charlie Kirk and others, they know this kind of messaging sells. Otherwise, they just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I think that there are a lot of these people, too, who very much feel as though they need to demonstrate how tough they are, that there is actually some insecurity to this. I think Charlie Kirk feels as though he needs to present himself as being a very tough person. He did this ad where he's like selling pain relievers to old people, right? I mean, he's like trying to present himself as something that is part of this sense of machismo and so on and so forth. I mean, look, Charlie Kirk, at the end of the day, the United States won a different color medal than it would have otherwise had Simone Biles been performing. Charlie Kirk, I am very confident, and cares very little about the Olympics beyond for this particular 2 weeks or the 2 weeks it's going to be coming up in 4 years. All of this is about using a moment once again to try and score points in this never-ending cultural fight, which is so important to people like Charlie Kirk and other people on the right. And the people who suffer as a result of it are people like Simone Biles and those police officers on Capitol Hill.
Yeah. You can talk shit about your fellow Americans, but, whatever. I'm not going to go there. Thank you both. Have a good night. And thank you for watching. Our coverage continues.